Welcome to the 2025 Homegrown Concert Series from the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress. My name is Steve Winnick. For many years, the Homegrown Concert Series has brought the best in traditional music and dance right here to the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. And we're very happy to have today with us Ensemble Sanginetto. When we can, we like to bring the artists who perform for us in the Homegrown Concert Series here to do an interview. And so I'm here with the members of Ensemble Sanginetto. And one of the challenges that I sometimes face is that I interview people from many countries and many languages. And so rather than introduce you by name, I'm going to have you say your name so that people will hear it pronounced correctly the first time. So let's start.
So I'm Jacopo. I'm the guitar player of Ensemble Sanginetto.
I am Caterina. I am the boat psaltery player and the singer of the group.
And I, Adriano, the harp player of the Ensemble Sanginetto.
And I will say that they're modest because they're all singers, and they sing beautifully. You'll see that in the concert. I'll mention that this interview is, of course, connected to a concert in our Homegrown Concert Series, which also is a video that's on the Library of Congress website. So if you're seeing this interview separately, you can search the Library of Congress website and find the concert as well. So usually when I interview several people, I start at the beginning and ask each one individually how they started out and then how they started playing together. But this time we have two people who always played together and always worked together because they are in fact twins. And so the Sanginetto twins are members of this group. So talk about your upbringing and your beginnings musically.
Actually, we are the children of instrument maker. Basically, he has been making instruments such as harp, Celtic harp, or psalteries, both psalteries, for more than 40 years. So we were born inside this environmental ambient in which we actually breathe the music itself, and all the artists that were coming over passed through our house, so they gave us also this kind of feeling since we were born.
And we started at the age of maybe 5 or 6, starting learning the boat psaltery with our parents. We all together, we played medieval music and Renaissance, the four together. And that started just by fun. But then, of course, we all, the two of us, we had an academical formation at the conservatory for other instruments, because these traditional instruments are not taught in academical schools. And so we started with medieval music and Renaissance music, and then we moved to folk and classical music.
Interesting. And so you mentioned that your father is an instrument maker, and I know he's continued to make instruments both in the classical world and in the traditional folk music world. So talk a little bit about his instrument making, and I know you have a CD that's got music played on very unusual instruments that he made. So
I mean, for years he has been really interesting into reproducing folk music instruments, basically from all over Europe, such as string instruments like psaltery, or different shapes of the psalteries, or harps. Then since 2010 he started reproducing instrument taken from the paintings of the Renaissance, the painters of the Renaissance, Italian Renaissance, such as Leonardo da Vinci, Giorgione, Piero di Cosimo. And you can actually see those masterworks in the Uffizi galleries in Florence, or in some churches that you can find all over Italy, basically. But he also took some stuff from the Flanders, from Germany, from France, wherever he found strange instruments. He went to that and he started this job of remaking. It wasn't actually a job; it was purely a passion. Yeah. So that's what is the main characteristic of our father.
And then for several years he has been concentrating on reproducing and interpreting also the instruments sketched by Leonardo da Vinci. Of course, they were drafts and not so clear, so you will have to interpret them. And our father, Michele Sanginetto, did it. And we recorded those instruments on a beautiful album in 2019 for celebrating the anniversary of Leonardo da Vinci. And we recorded these instruments with Renaissance repertoire.
Wonderful. And of course, because it's Da Vinci, we don't know that these instruments really existed, right? They're design sketches that may never have been built.
I mean, what we know about him, and we developed a lot of research, especially in 2019. We know that Da Vinci was always interested in renewing the instruments that already existed. For instance, the paper organ that is drafted in one of the codex, in the Madrid Codex, was a kind of innovation of a portable organ that already existed at the time. So it was an innovation. That's what he brought just aside the draft of the instruments. So that's what we know. But actually, we don't know for sure that they have already, or even if ever, made these instruments or not.
Right. Interesting. So, yeah. So let's talk about the instruments that you do play, or that you play today. In particular, I guess we can start with the Celtic harp, which Adriano plays. So, how did you start on Celtic harp specifically?
I started more than 20 years ago, and I mean, normally when I'm playing in Italy or in Europe, I normally play my harp, made up by my father, of course. And I mean, I started playing this harp more than 20 years ago, and I tried also, as a self-taught, I tried also to push a little bit more the boundaries of the classical way to play the harp, and I'm developing my interest in I don't know, the rhythmic patterns on the harp, so a more rhythmical style of the harp, starting with Celtic music, but also going far beyond the Celtic music, and also making up so many composition focused on this kind of particular technique on the harp that I developed.
And one of the things I read is that your father once made some of the harps for Alain Stivell.
He made two harps for Stivell and one for Derek Bell.
Oh, great.
Jeff Dance, and so many other harp players.
Yeah, but it strikes me that what you were saying about sort of playing Celtic music and then going far beyond that is a characteristic of Stivell's playing as well. So were you influenced by him?
Yeah, we kind of say, we can say that he was kind of our second father.
Yeah.
We met him a lot of times, and especially when we were young, he came through our house several times. And once we had also the chance to play in front of him. There were just a very few crowd of people. It was kind of 10 or 12 people in the audience because the concert wasn't advertised very well. But he was there with his wife in front row.
It was exciting.
Staring at us.
That's nice. Yeah.
But it was priceless.
Yeah. Well, I'll say for our viewers who might not know the name, Alain Stivell is one of the biggest names in the Celtic harp from Brittany and France, and a great player and band leader who innovated a lot in Celtic music. So that's the Celtic harp, and the bowed psaltery. That's an instrument that our viewers may not be that familiar with. Can you tell us a little about the instrument?
Yes. The instrument is, I have it here.
Yeah, if you want.
I can show it.
Show it. Maybe show us how a note or two is played. Yeah.
So this is a string instrument. It has 33 strings. They are metal strings. The name psaltery is mentioned in the Bible as the Book of Psalms. So probably a string instrument that was plucked originally was used for helping the intonation of psalms. This is the evolution of the original instrument. I play it with a bow here, and it is normally used for Middle Age and Renaissance music. We experiment a lot with this instrument. It is a peculiar instrument because all these strings are very near to each other, so the resonances of the instruments are, very strong. Can Do you wanna? I can let you hear something.
Yeah. Beautiful, and I'll mention that. Yeah,
Going on.
yeah, that's right. It's continuing to resonate. Yeah, and I'll mention that it looks like it's played by the fact that the strings are different lengths, and that gives you a spot on each string that you can bow without touching the other strings, which there's no bridge or anything, or very, very low bridge. So yeah, so very, it's an efficient design, even though
Yeah,
it
and
looks unusual.
beautiful.
Yeah, and very
Because my father so has a practical point of view, of course. So the instrument has to be good instrument, has to sound good, but he also likes aesthetics.
Right.
So as you can see, it's very nice objet d'art.
Yeah, beautiful instrument. Well, thank you. And we don't want to neglect Jacopo and sitting here listening to his friends. So,
Yeah, it's a cool.
so tell us about your musical beginnings. really.
Okay. I started when I was 11 with a classical guitar. As a matter of fact, my mother, she was playing classical guitar at home, so I picked that part from her. And I had conservatoire of classical guitar. Blah, blah, blah. And after conservatoire, I was fed up of classical music, and I didn't touch the guitar for something like 2 years. Then I discovered acoustic guitars, and I really got into that, and flat picking style, and first finger style, then flat picking. And I was really into Italian traditional music. I was really in love with Italian traditional music and North Italian, my region. I come from Piedmont, so northwest of Italy, and I was really into that music. And then I discovered a bit my French music first, and for traveling life, I got across. I came across into Mediterranean music, something like Turkish music, and so I started playing other instruments such as the saz or the oud, and then I arrived to the bouzouki, the Irish bouzouki and Greek bouzouki. Then I arrived into Irish music, then banjo and mento and this bluegrass stuff. And so in my path, I started playing several instruments, and actually I'm more a guitar player than other instruments. I'm a guitar and bouzouki player, but I really like to play a lot of string instruments, and now I'm really focusing on a lot in Italian and French music and Irish music. That's my focus now.
All right. And yeah, I'll mention that we're getting kind of the travel version of the Ensemble San Ginetto, because you can't bring 25 instruments on the road. So this is the smaller version, but beautiful, playing on all the instruments. So thank you. So you mentioned that you got really into traditional music. And you guys got into it through your father, but how does a young Italian person get into traditional folk music?
Well, that's a funny. Yeah, I mean, it's a funny story. When I was 15, 16, so it means something like a couple of years ago. No, 25 years ago. In Italy, there was this band named Modena City Rambler. They are kind of a Pogs style band, but singing in Italian, and not just in Italian, in dialect. They were singing in Emilian dialect, from Emilia, but really with a punk appeal, folk punk appeal. And I was really into that one, and so I was listening to that one. So when I was 18, 19, I decided to create my band, which was more or less the same appeal, but it was a folk rock band. And at a certain point in this band, it arrived a guy who was playing musette, which is a pipe from the center of France, and which is widely used also in my region, because Piedmont, my region, is exactly on the border with France. So musette is used music from Provence and also music from Piedmont. And so I arrived to this band, and I discovered something that was not something like punkish or Irish descending, but it was something like, okay, this instrument, it's a pipe, but it's not a Ilian pipe, it's not a Highland bagpipe. And he was playing some repertoire, and it was a repertoire that was not Irish or something. It was definitely from Piedmont, and I really got into that one thanks to this guy. And then that's where I started from the traditional music. Then once you study music from Piedmont, it's quite easy to go into French music because we are really close to each other.
Right.
And then once you go into French music, it's really easy to go into Breton music. Once you go into Breton music, it's quite easy to go into Quebecois music.
Yeah, that's true.
And once you go into Quebecois music, it's so easy to switch into Irish music and bluegrass stuff. So everything is connected in traditional music, yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. So how did you connect with these people, though?
I met them in a festival, in a Celtic music festival in 2012. And we have this quite big festival close to our house. They come from Monza, which is a smaller city close to Milano, and I come from Arona, which is a village on the Lago Maggiore, quite a mountain area in Italy. And in between us, in Busto Arsizio, there's a festival in which we met. I mean, I think I met Adriano a bit before.
A bit before?
Yeah, something like 2 or 3 months before.
Because we had the jet session.
Yeah, randomly somewhere, just having a session. And then in the festival, he arrived with his sister, and because they were performing in duo with Carlos Nunes.
With Carlos Nunes
Yeah.
also.
That time, and I was over there with my folk rock band. So I'm gonna rock. And I mean, we just met over there.
Part of the same words.
The same-
It's not a big word.
The same scene, yeah, the same world, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
a couple of years later, we decided to create the first band together, and then we went on.
Excellent. Well, we love Carlos Nunez as well. He's a friend of ours and performed in the same series.
Are you kidding me?
No, it's
really
about
good.
10 years
That's
ago.
really good.
We had Carlos, and
Carlos is a great person.
yeah, well, great musician. So, so you had mentioned some of the groups that influenced you. How about you guys? What are the Italian music folk groups that you listened to that when you were trying to learn how to do this?
That's a good question because I mean we from our region there are not so many folk musicians coming from Lombardy. We don't actually know exactly why, but they are actually more focused on the folk stuff that are coming from abroad, from France, for instance, or
Ireland.
or Irish music, Scottish music, and not properly from the bands that are developing
Local.
local. Even the local bands that we knew, like such as Spacca Brianza or other, they were into the folk stuff. Maybe they composed the folk stuff, but on the rhythm of the French dances, or actually our influence is coming from specifically from our father part, because he is from the south of Italy, and in the south of Italy the tradition of the folk music is stronger than in Lombardy, and so we for years and years since we were younger, we have been living this this nice and spontaneous folk stuff that were born in the villages of the south of Italy, such as tarantellas players or pizzicas, or very primitive, spontaneous songs with the kind of nuances which are in between the Italian and Mediterranean stuff, because I mean the south of Italy were a cross border of the crossroads of the people that came through there.
And I might say that the second point of reference for us for folk music was French music, because our father, as a luthier, he traveled a lot for exposing his instruments in international fairs, and there were a lot of big international fairs, especially in France, but also in Germany. But France has a very strong folk tradition. And after Alain Stivell in Brittany, and there were also other French musicians and not mainstream, non-mainstream like Alain Stivell, but they worked for this revival of also French music, and we took part in a lot of festivals since we were very young. Just where my father had to expose the instruments, we came in touch with a lot of musicians and luthiers, of course, of these French traditional instruments. So especially Musette, Vielle-la-Rue, so Hardegardie. So that was a great influence for us. Also the Breton, of course.
Yeah, but it's true that the French regional folk music scene is very important in France and not as well known outside the country as Breton music is specifically. So it's good to mention, you know, these groups and people who have been working in that field for all these years and doing great work as well. So I'm glad you're, you know, finding those influences too.
Yeah, we can talk about Malicorne.
Malicorne, yeah, Gabriel just
Yeah.
passed away a few weeks ago. So, yeah, but Malicorne is a great band, and La Bamboche, and there are a lot of great groups that,
Yes.
you know.
Trian, all the others. Yeah,
Yeah.
Trian,
For folk music in Italy, there's another name very important, which is Riccardo Tesi.
Yeah.
Riccardo Tesi is a great accordion player who has a big project called Bella Ciao, in which there are three important singers of folk music, big singers, women singers, Lucilla Galeazzi, Ginevra Di Marco, and Elena Ledda. They are the voices in Italy of the tradition. And he also made a lot of research about traditional music, and we are all friends with Riccardo. He's a great friend of us, and we also collaborated with him a lot. So that was another great
Great, good to know.
interpreter.
So you're taking these songs and tunes and making arrangements for your own group and your own instruments. How do you approach arranging these traditional songs and tunes?
I mean, we've had to split our parts because at first our project is dealing with choosing one ballad from each of the 20 regions.
Yes.
So, which is a kind of a challenge because we had to find the ballad that can represent an entire region, which is absolutely just a symbolic choice, of course, because each of the regions has thousands of different dialects, thousands of different stories that can be told. So
Yeah.
we decided to choose one ballad that mainly sang in one of the dialects of that region. And then, so while research this, the three of us, we are just listening all the tunes that we can gather, maybe from our different, backgrounds. Then she chooses, of course, she chooses the ones that it fits better to her voice, and she chooses also the tonality.
And also I choose upon the text. It depends on the lyrics, of course. Sometimes we decide to focus on that topic or on that one.
Sure.
It's important. And also,
And you don't want the whole project to be just murder ballads. You want
Yeah.
so you have to variety.
and also choosing strophes for verses, for example, because some, for example, Lucite la Lune, the Christmas song from Friuli had like 25 verses, so you have to choose them. And before, if you don't understand what's written, you have to find someone who helps you in translating, because sometimes our dialects, sometimes our languages.
Right.
So you have to find connections with musicians or linguists in other regions. So that was a big part. My part. That was my part.
Yeah, our job is actually the job of building up the arrangement of, the harmonic arrangement, because he's into the harmonic and the rhythmic stuff.
Right.
Because he choose also some, for instance, he has these different kind of.
yeah, I mean, I give some part of the flavor is depends also on the tuning I'm using for the guitar. So it can be DAG, drop D, or a standard, and of course if I'm standard, it's quite easier to give a more jazz appeal. Or if I'm that god, it's easier to give a more a French or Irish appeal. This kind of things, So depending on the tuning I choose, maybe, or what I visualize the song, we develop then the arrangement starting from that part. So if
And also from the instruments, because bouzouki.
yeah, of course, here I just have the guitar, but in the CD I'm using massively also the bouzouki or
The classical
classical guitar, so a lot of fingers, which is another style again. So and that's a starting point for the arrangement. Then Adrian is arriving and he's something like the genius of vocal arrangement. So it's
Well, that's another big question is, so yeah, the instrumental arrangements, you have to come up with chord changes and all kinds of things like that. But then there's the vocal arrangements, which are quite complex in your case, yeah.
I mean, I've been studying vocal composition and vocal arrangements in the conservatoire, and I did really to acquire arrangement. They gave me the opportunity also to experiment a lot of stuff, even that they were unpredictable at the beginning. So mainly, she is singing the original melody, because the original melody is the only thing that we try to maintain from the original version of each of the ballads. Okay, then the harmonies that we are changing, and even the harmonies of the vocals that me and Jacopo are putting underneath can go everywhere. That's our purpose.
Yeah.
So kind of our project is dealing with renewing the dress of each of these ballads. Okay, so we took these ballads, and if you had the chance to listen to these ballads, so take the title and you choose the ballads, you probably may hear those ballads in a way that you can hear the verse, a basic arrangement, a basic accompaniment.
Yeah.
The second verse, third verse, the 93rd verse is always with the same same arrangement. So it's just because they have to spread the ballads. They weren't into the way to arrange it.
Yeah.
So our project is dealing with this building up a new way of folk music, considering our three backgrounds.
Also, we may say that for every tune, we found an inspiration, a different inspiration. For example, for Violina, we were inspired by a Breton tradition of singing. For Mare Maie, so the Abruzzi's song, there's this bossa nova atmosphere. And so we of course, we cannot say that we took inspiration from Fado, but the idea is that one.
So you mentioned one ballad from each region, and that's a current project that you're engaged in, right? So explain the project a little bit.
Yeah, the thing is that, I mean, everything was born in 2022, when we were supposed to be called making a tour into New Zealand in 2023, at the beginning of the 2023. So preparing this 2 months tour in New Zealand, we decided, okay, if they were asking us something about Italian tradition, and we were thinking, okay, normally abroad, everywhere in the world, the Italian tradition is basically tarantellas and stuff like that. And we said, yes, but we can go a little bit beyond this stereotype. And because Italy is very, very different from north to south, even considering the islands. And so we decided, why don't we arrange a tour throughout Italy? Okay, as I said, it's just a symbolic tour, because also the way we arrange the stuff coming from those regions is not the traditional way. So it's just a way to invite people to discover also other parts of Italy, and not just the parts where the tarantella is from, which is something that we really love. But of course, it's not just that. Yeah, that's the main purpose of our project.
Excellent. Well, it's beautiful to hear songs from so many different parts of Italy and different languages and dialects. So yeah,
We called this project the Grand Tour
yeah,
because historically the Grand Tour was the tour that the children of rich people had all around Europe, especially in France, Italy, and Germany, for accomplishing their education in history, art, culture.
Mainly English aristocracy. I mean,
yeah.
mainly English aristocracy they were having this one. It was something they had to do for
Yeah.
for discovering the ancient Rome origins and something like that, and culture.
Cultural project, not
Right.
only a musical one.
Great. Yeah, so you want to find one song or tune from each region. We're a library, so we're interested in, where did you go to find all of this material?
There's there are several sources we are using, and one really big is I could say similar to the Library of Congress,
Yeah.
but it's held by RAI, which is the radio and television, Italian radio and television, the public one. And they gather into this website, we call it
Archive.
Letteche RAI. It's a big archive of recordings that a lot of ethnomusicologists have been made during the last 50 or 60 years, mainly to old people. Sometimes they go to bars and old pubs and these kind of things, recording old people. And that's probably the biggest resource we have for. And depending, of course, on the region, there are some other songs we heard from maybe other bands, other musicians, and like in Piedmont, we had La Ciapparusa, which was a big name for Piedmontese revival, and also they're quite good friends also.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because when I was getting into European folk music, there were like 3 or 4 bands that I knew about, La Ciapparusa and Tre Martelli.
Tre Martelli, of course.
There were a few others like
And
yeah.
both the band, they were my inspiration when I was something like 20, and I was start listening a lot of Piedmontese music.
They're a band of your region.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are Piedmontese band,
Oh,
and
that's not so much.
no, and yeah, that's something. I mean, there's a particular reason for which in Piedmont there are this band and in Lombardy there are not, which is the industrialization. Industrialization hit Lombardy more heavily than Piedmont,
I see. Yeah.
and so they lost part of their background.
Yeah.
But for example, if you have those kind of traditional revival band, it's easy also to go on their repertoire and choose one or something like that,
Yeah.
which can also help for the lyrics, because once you're playing in this scene for a lot of years, you know almost everyone who's playing in this scene. So you can just call this band and say, hey, you record this one in this traditional arrangement. Can I use it? Would you mind to write me the lyrics or something like that?
Yeah.
Would you explain me a bit better what it's talking about, something like that?
Of course, changing arrangement.
Yeah,
That
well,
was-
We had, for example,
you don't have the same instruments as any other group, so
we had, for example, the song we chose for Sardinia. It was originally recorded by a band of friends, which was Ballade Boys. And they're really great musicians, having stuff in a traditional but really punchy way. They're really, really punchy, they have a good drive, but really traditional, the way they're playing and their arrangements. And so we just told them something, we want to use that song, and so he just wrote us all the pronunciation for every word. You just wasn't
No,
in touch with
he recorded me. And
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
listening to it, what that's that?
His name is Carlo, the guy who's leading this band. And we just asked, Carlo, can you just explain a bit and a slow recording of the lyrics, because we cannot really get from the... And we had something like a 10-minute vocal on WhatsApp, and we couldn't understand even one word of what he was saying. So it was, that was
That's
Our
my
duty.
part as linguist.
Well, I should say that when John Fenn introduced you for the concert, he mentioned that we have a large collection of Italian traditional recordings from the 1950s that Alan Lomax and Diego Capitelli. Yes. So those are great, and we invite you to come to the library and listen to them anytime. They're not online currently, but they will be sometime soon. So we'll let you know when that happens.
Amazing.
Yeah. And of course, we also have a lot of recordings from Italian people in the United States who were still singing and playing in Italian. So yeah, so we're going to invite you sometime, and
You have
get
a
to-
treasure.
Exactly. We have a lot of treasures here, but one of the treasures now for all our viewers is your concert, which will be on the Library of Congress website, and this interview as well. So thank you very much. I always like to end my interviews by asking, is there anything that I didn't ask that you wanted to say?
We'll let the music speak.
Good plan. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you
all
very much,
It was wonderful to meet you and to have you here in the Homegrown Concert Series.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.